afternoon, class. It's Mr. Sargent here with your day 52 recap.
It is I, Dr. Doubt, and I have the power to cancel day number 52. Ha 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 ha.
Ooh, that Dr. Doubt. I'm sure that's not the last time we're going to see him. He's right, though. I didn't do a video for day 52, but I was kind of saving it for day number 53. And welcome to day number 53, ladies and gentlemen. Because of the storms we had last week, I was not able to do a video, and I truly am sorry. But we're here today, we're healthy today, and we're paying attention, learning new concepts in both ELA and for science today. So stay tuned, and we're going to learn a little bit today about, well, first, text features and how authors put in these text features to try to help you understand a little bit better. But we're also going to test our building designs that we started last week. So go ahead and stay tuned. So in ELA, we're going to focus our attention on text features. Now, what text features are, well, they're an important part of the story, but they're technically not in the story. Now, we find text features in our titles, in our subheadings, in the bold words, as well as in the captions underneath pictures. Now, this week, we are going to focus on three in particular. We're going to focus on captions, we're going to focus on the bold printed words, and subheadings. And there's a reason why I like the word subheadings, and it's because it has the prefix sub, all right, which means underneath. All right, so our learning target for this week will be using text features to find information in nonfiction texts that will help you better understand what you need. And they do help, especially in those nonfiction stories. Now, nonfiction, as we know, they're true stories. All right, so to better understand these stories, we need to look at these text features. So if we take a look at the story that we read on igloos, the title is House of Snow. And this is just important as anything else because it's our first introduction to what this story is going to be about. Now, as we read through it, you can see some of the text features. You have the word igloo. That's a bold word. And so that's going to be one word that we're going to be looking for the meaning. And then you see the dark words called making an igloo. Well, that's what we call a subheading. All right, that tells us that in this part of the story or in this paragraph, we're going to be learning about making an igloo. All right, so far we've got bold words and we've got subheading. Now take a look at the picture. Underneath it shows the window in the igloo is made of sea ice. Well, if I was just looking at this picture, I would have no idea what this was talking about. But with the caption underneath the picture, well, we're able to figure out that right there is sea ice, and that's pretty cool. Now, our spelling words this week, well, they follow, once again, another sound pattern. Now, when you have the long EA sound, it's going to sound like the letter E. So these have words in them that you can hear the letter E in how you pronounce it. So let's go over our words this week. Number one is also. Now, this is just a sight word. We don't see that long E sound in there, but it's there because that is one word that we're going to see over and over. Next, it's beat. Well, did you hear the long E sound? Good, because beat is definitely a word that will have that pattern. And along with that, we have the word seat for number three. We have three for number four, which if you notice, it doesn't have the EA, but it has an EE. But can you still hear that long E sound? Well, I hope you can. Next, it's small. Small does not fit our pattern, but this is one of those words that we're going to see more and more often. All right. Number six, mean. Once again, if you hear it, there's that long E. Number seven is clean. I know you heard it that time. Number eight is peak. Now, this isn't peekaboo. What? Now, this isn't that. The peak here is the top of a mountain, like a mountain peak. All right. Number nine is dream. Once again, follows that pattern, doesn't it? With that EA spelling, but it has the long E sound if you listen to it. We have beach for number 10. And number 11 is team. Now, a lot of these words, I think except for small and also have that E, long E sound to it. All right, so when we pronounce these words or when we read these words, make sure you're saying those long E's. All right, now we get to our bonus words or our challenge words. And here we have words that I misspell all the time because they have a letter pattern that we don't often see. So number 12 is length with the NGTH. We don't often see that, do we? All right, next we have weight, which this doesn't mean to wait for the next train or wait your turn. This means how heavy something is. Now, often I switch the E and the I there. Same thing with number 14, height. Height. Then number 15 follows our pattern again, and that's meet. And then finally, number 16 is distance. Now, in class, your Google Classroom, you're going to find this assignment. I made it as easy as possible, and a lot of you have already started it already. I look forward to seeing the work that you do. Now, last week in science, we learned about natural and synthetic materials. Natural materials are things that you can find in nature. Synthetic are things that are made in factories and made by man, usually through mixtures and mixing a couple natural materials together. Now, we started an experiment last week that we were able to finish.
Because of my power, I was able to cancel the experiment on Thursday, and you all couldn't do it.
And he's right, ladies and gentlemen. We weren't able to finish this because of the storm. So let's go ahead and finish it now. Now, one thing you're going to see behind me, well, welcome to Sargeville. These are a number of houses, both synthetic and natural, that, well, I constructed earlier today. Now, I noticed that a lot of you also constructed your own buildings, which was incredible. And I want to show some of them off right now. Now, didn't they do a great job? And I highly suggest anybody else that did this project, feel free to send me a picture. I would love to see what you have done. So it's one thing to build it, and we know to build these structures, you need walls, you need a roof, and it needs to be sturdy enough. So what we're gonna do is conduct a little experiment on, well, how to make them sturdy. Now, sturdy means strong. So the sturdy means being able to stand up to pretty much anything. So we're going to test these buildings today in a couple of ways. But first, we need to go through our scientific method. Now, first up, we have our question. The question is, can I build a house using natural or synthetic materials that can survive a windstorm, a rainstorm, an earthquake, and something special I have towards the end? Well, my hypothesis is, yes, I can. Using the materials that I have, I will be able to do just that. I'll be able to make a house that survives all of that. So let's go ahead and test it out, first with the wind.
Now, you already know that's not going to work. All of the buildings are going to fall, and you're going to end up crying. Rah-ha-ha!
Now, don't listen to him. You notice some of the buildings still stood. We have the block building made of natural wood that still stands. We have our teepee that definitely worked. And we even have our house made of sugar that still is standing. It might have lost its roof, but it's still standing. And one thing that was a real surprise was the cardboard house. The cardboard house is still standing. And that's because the wind was able to travel over the roof. The way the roof was set up, the wind was able to travel over it. This is one of the biggest reasons why we have pointed roofs in our houses. It's pretty cool. And the ones that didn't work, well, we kind of knew they wouldn't. And that's part of the fun of doing science experiments, is the smashy stuff. If you notice, the straw house fell down very easily, and the house of cups, fell down because really it's not as sturdy and it's not connected like the other ones are. Now we're going to test an earthquake. Now, with an earthquake, it pretty much is when the earth is moving and shaking. Now, houses are meant to be built to survive and still stand during an earthquake. But let's see which materials made the best earthquake-safe house. So let's go take a look now. Next, we have a heavy rainstorm. Now, if you notice here, we're going to be pouring some water on the houses. Now, some of the houses work fine. Once again, our cardboard house works great. The water just goes off the side. All right, the wood house didn't move. We knew that. The teepee didn't move. The house of cards, though, or the house of cups, I keep saying cards. House of cups, well, they got wet, but for the most part, they stayed put. The real interesting one was the sugar house, and I want you to take a closer look at that. Now, when the water hits the sugar, it's going to disintegrate it, which means dissolve it. Well, as you can see, that house isn't going to stand up. Now, the roof does what it can to protect it, but when that water seeps in, yeah, it's going to disintegrate it. So, we now have learned to do not build our house out of sugar. And the plastic house worked really, really well. Well, you think about what we wear for when we're outside in the rain. We wear either a plastic or a rubber raincoat. Synthetic materials are great for waterproofing. And finally, the test you've probably all been waiting for. Now, earlier this morning, we read a story on asteroids. And, well, we've had some in our Earth's history that have landed on Earth. So let's find out when an asteroid or a meteor lands on Earth, and let's see what happens. Let's go ahead and watch that in slow motion. Total destruction. Isn't that fun? No matter what Dr. Doubt says, I consider this experiment a success. Because if we look at our results now, we can see that some of the materials are better. We talk about natural materials like wood, definitely great for building a house. Even the synthetic, the plastic straws were great as long as we add the weight to them. All right? So our conclusion is, well, did we achieve our hypothesis? Yes and no. Some of the houses worked better than others. Some just didn't work. All right? So I encourage you to test it out your own house by yourself. I would not use water, but you can definitely test the earthquake or the other things that will definitely affect how the house stands.
You still failed. Some of the buildings fell. Well, you still have some of the buildings that are still up, but some of the buildings fell, so I'm partly victorious. I will be back on Friday to ruin that experiment too.
And that is right. We can both succeed and fail an experiment at the same time. It's about finding the different results. That's one of the great things about experiments. So I want to thank you all for joining me today and doing this experiment. Hopefully you learned something and had some fun. Do not forget, all of your homework assignments can be found on Google Classroom. And ladies and gentlemen, until the next time I see you, have a wonderful, wonderful night.